Hello, and welcome back to the Camera Rolling Podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie, and I apologize already for being gone for so long. I have just not been feeling inspired. Plus, there's a couple of larger projects that I'm working on that I just haven't sat down to do like the proper research and writing for it yet. And so my brain just hasn't been in the headspace to film an episode, so I apologize for being gone for the past few weeks. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, then I know that I have been gone and I've really only been uploading the iceberg videos, and I'm sure that this was the iceberg video you were expecting for this week, but I really wanted to do something in between these last couple of iceberg videos. So here I am back, and today's gonna be a chill video. It's gonna be pretty simple. So a few months ago, I did a video on my channel talking about the movies that I had watched that month, and I thought it would be a good time to sort of catch up with the movies that I've watched the past couple of months. And I say past couple of months because I think every month is like very different for me, where sometimes I watch a movie almost every day, it seems like, whereas other months I watch like maybe 5 or 6 movies. So it's very polarizing the way that I watch content or consume content. So I am combining the watches that I have for March and April. And let me just tell you, I watched a lot of movies in March, and I don't know if I will keep all of them in this video because there were so many, and it's a lot. To start off, the first movie I watched in March was The Woman in the Window, directed by Joe Wright, and it was made or released in 2021. It's a fairly recent movie. It's about a woman who has agoraphobia, I believe. The film stars Amy Adams and has a slew of other characters. There's also Julianne Moore, Gary Oldman. There's, some interesting people in this film. It's, I believe, based on a book. Essentially, Amy Adams's character is agoraphobic, and she does what a lot of people do, looks out the window at her neighbors, and across the street, this family moves into the like house slash apartment. This family has some drama, right? She's watching them. It's very Rear Window. They're watching something and they can't tell if what they've seen was literally a crime. She believes that she sees the man across the street kill his wife, and she disappears, and it seems like the son may also be being abused, and she's a child psychiatrist or psychologist, and so she sort of tries to communicate to this kid like, hey, if you're having problems, you can always come over here and talk to me and whatnot. I'm a professional, literally. So part of it is obviously that it's hard to know if what she actually saw was real, mainly because she is struggling with her mental health and seemingly mental illness, not only in her being agoraphobic in that she will not go outside or is not able to go outside, but because she is taking different medication that she doesn't quite know, or the side effects of them are not great. They make it kind of murky in what she is looking at. The movie has an interesting ending that sort of explains it all. Definitely, I would say I was very interested to see this film because I wasn't sure if it was a women be crazy film, and I actually really liked the ending, how it summed it up. I felt like it made everything make sense, not only because of how they summed it up, but also I definitely feel like in telling this story with the inclusion of medication that she's taking, it definitely makes it easier to not believe what she's seeing. I think in these other stories where women are sort of hysterical, or when they see something and nobody believes them, that it's not prefaced with, well, there's no reason to believe her other than she's a woman. It's never like, oh, we can't believe you because you're mentally ill and you're on drugs, and this is a viable reason to not believe you, right? Needless to say, I thought it was an interesting movie, and I would say that I enjoyed it, but it's definitely not anywhere near any of my top movies, right? Now, I could do these movies in the order that I watched them, but I think that it would be very confusing to do so because of how I watch these movies. So I'm going to talk about the movies that I watched that are like different types of movies, and then I'll talk about the category of movies that I watched overall that like a good chunk of movies will fall into, so that way I don't have to explain each individual movie because there are so many of them. The next movie I want to talk about is Fear.com. This film was interesting. It was directed by William Malone, and it came out in 2002. I believe I spent a lot of time watching this movie because I kept falling asleep. Oh, right. This was a movie that I thought, when I read the plot, I thought to myself, this sounds like a Japanese remake. This sounds literally like The Ring in a way. It's about a detective who is investigating a series of deaths after people logged on to a site named fear.com. And I mean that in the most literal way. It's called fear.com, and then you put dot and then com. I watched them type it in the movie, and I was just floored at that being the way that it was typed, that it was not literally fear.com, but fear.com.com. Needless to say, it's very much what you think it is. These people are dying 48 hours after they have logged onto this website, and they have to figure out, for one, what's going on, and two, how to stop it. And it's again, I fell asleep. It's not that it's like super boring, but it's not super interesting. It's not a new idea. It's not something I've never seen before. So I had a hard time watching it. The thing that was specifically confusing to me with this movie is that there is obviously the sort of supernatural element of they log onto this website and then they die, and it's like, oh, okay, like clearly this is like the website is like haunted in some capacity. But then there's also like a guy who's so-called like making content that would be on this website. I'm very confused by this man's relationship to the website. There's a man who's like kidnapping women and torturing them for money online, which is a real thing that happens. So I'm very confused as to why there's a supernatural element involved with this. I don't understand how those two things are related, and maybe I missed it when I was asleep. But I thought there were some interesting elements of the film, but it doesn't stick out amongst any other film that does the same thing. Next is a 2015 film. It's a psychological horror film, if you've been watching The Iceberg on my YouTube channel, but it was written and directed by Alejandro Amenabar. The film is called Regression. It stars Ethan Hawke and Emma Watson. This film I thought was really good. Really good film. So the film sort of surrounds this detective. It's another detective movie. The film surrounds this detective who is going to investigate this young woman who believes that she was abused. And a lot of the film is centered around trying to get access to the memories of the man who she believed abused her, because the man who abused her father, does not remember abusing her. And part of her memory has to do with sort of a satanic cult that now she believes, as she's remembering things, involves a much wider group of people. And so as this like group of people gets wider of who was involved in this cult attacking her, Obviously, he's trying to get to the bottom of it, of like what is going on here. I thought the film was really interesting. I liked what was happening in this film. I love all the like twists and turns that it takes. Also, the real Roderick is in this movie, if that interests you. I say that only because I had no idea he was in this movie, so when he showed up, I was like, it's a very interesting film, and it's not specifically a a religious movie, if that makes sense. Like there's like religious elements because there is like the element of satanic cults, but it's not specifically a like a Catholic or Christian religious film, if that makes sense. Because I know some people get very offended when religion is used in films this way, and I'm sure that the satanic community probably is bothered by how it's portrayed in media. I could have sworn that it said somewhere that this was based on real events. The next film has a very similar vibe to the last one, and I think I actually liked this film a little bit more, but it's the 2014 film The Calling. It's also adapted from a book. It stars Susan Sarandon, if that is interesting to you. It stars Susan Sarandon, which I think she is an amazing actress, and I feel like she just captures the vibe so well, especially because she is working as essentially a detective. They call her an inspector. This film is another investigatory film where there are like religious elements to the killings. It's very much it's giving what is that film that I just talked about in the psychological horror iceberg with Dennis Quaid? I can't remember. Horseman, yes. It kind of has like the same like story vibe, but essentially she is investigating a series of like disturbing murders. And as she's investigating, she realizes that there is sort of a religious element to this. And as she is putting the pieces together, she is trying to figure out like what exactly this serial killer is doing and why. And it's again, it's just a very interesting look at when someone takes religious text too far. And also, I think there's sort of a narcissistic element to the serial killer in regards to how he feels about his role in what he is doing. And it feels very realistic. I don't know. I enjoy sort of investigatory things. If you're into true crime, this might also interest you just because of the investigatory element of it and how you are working from the investigator's side. But yeah, I found the ending to be pretty satisfying, and I just enjoyed getting to hear Susan Sarandon's voice. So now I'm going to talk about the series of movies that I watched that all are very similar and fall into a very similar category. And this category would be like 90s, 2000s Lifetime. Specifically, ones that are based on true stories or ones surrounding some sort of event that happened, right? A lot of them are like overly dramatic or just very strange. Like the acting or the actors in them just seem not quite right, or they're actors that have just been around for a very long time, so it's very strange to see them in these roles. So the first one I watched was Suburban Madness by Robert Dornhelm, and it's a 2004 film. It's starring Sela Ward, Elizabeth Pena, and Brett Cullen, if those names interest you. It's about part of it is about like a PI who specifically investigates cheating accusations from partners. And as she is doing this, she finds that she's kind of become a part of this little triangle of people who believe they are being cheated on. It's very interesting, but needless to say, Elizabeth Pena is married to Brett Cullen's character, and she believes that he is cheating, and he is cheating on her with this new hire, and things get kind of out of hand. It's just a very strange kind of film, but it's very Lifetime. It's very, oh, what are you doing, Miss Girl? The next one is the 1982 film Prime Suspect by Noel Black. This film is about a man who is accused of kidnapping a young girl. And of course, he's the prime suspect because he was the last one to see this little girl. And everyone in town, like, it's mostly about him trying to, like, save face, like, save his name because he very clearly didn't do this. And he has to, like, prove to everyone that it's not him, and sort of about the turmoil that he is facing because everyone in town thinks he did it. And it's just kind of a weird movie. But it was interesting. I watched it mainly because the main dude has some weird hair. And that's all I'm going to say. Also, the ending had me laughing. And this is going to be a spoiler. I don't even know if you want to see this movie. But essentially, at his work, his boss was like, we can send you to a different branch somewhere else, right? And his name has still not been cleared at this point, but he decides that one day he's just like, you know what? I am innocent, so I'm just gonna go back to work. And he does, and it's like everyone is like slow clapping, you know? It just was so funny because he wasn't cleared. Why would any of these people just suddenly believe that because he has the confidence that he's innocent, that he's innocent? It was so weird and funny. The next one is Family Sins, directed by, I don't know if it's Graham or Gramey Clifford, and this is a 2004 film. It stars Kirstie Alley, and pretty much it's about Kirstie Alley and her family. Like, they have a level of prominence within the community, and they use their resources to abuse both people, like the children in the home, but also people surrounding them. So, like, they have a rental property, and if you can't pay rent, then you essentially become their slave in some capacity. But of course, on the outside, everyone thinks that they're these really nice, good people, and it's just very interesting. Something about for TV movies being made about real life events makes them very hinky. I don't know any other word to use other than just kind of hinky. Where it's like you can't really laugh at them for being bad movies because they're about real life events. It makes the line really weird. The next film is Fallen Angel by Robert Michael Lewis, and it's a 1981 film. This one is about how a young girl gets groomed, pretty much. The situations in which this happens, which her mom, she's having a hard life at home because her mom wants to marry a new man after her father is recently deceased. And so obviously it's very hard for her to get used to this new man. And so she kind of looks for comfort elsewhere and another father figure, and she finds it in this predator. So the next one is Do You Know the Muffin Man? It is directed by Gilbert Cates, and it's a 1989 film. Oh, this film was about some children who came forward about a neighborhood daycare that was abusing the children, and it's sort of about the family of the young boy who was abused. Again, there's nothing graphic in this film. It's mostly about sort of the turmoil that the family faces along with the subsequent, like, trials and legal battles that they face. The next one was When She Was Bad. It's a film by Peter H. Hunt. It was released in 1979. It's another one about child abuse. Again, there's a whole genre of these sort of TV movies that are about very serious topics, but still are made very poorly that I watched because these movies sort of interest me in a way, and I'm not really sure why. But this one is really just about how this movie was actually interesting because I wasn't expecting the way that it went. A mother It's kind of about a mother trying not to abuse her child, and it's mostly just like yelling and emotional abuse. Uh, I thought this film was particularly interesting because we're seeing a lot of how the mother is working through how she doesn't want to abuse her child, and how the way that they treated mental health and mental illness and therapy at the time is very, very heavily reflected in the way that they go about it. It's I don't know. I just thought this movie, amongst all of them, was very interesting just because of that element. That it's not so much about the child and what they're dealing with, so much as how the mother is trying to like actually work through it and be a better parent. And I actually really appreciated that about the film instead of just being, they abuse their child. Like, no, she does not want to. The next film is The Interrogation of Michael Crow. It is directed by Don McBrearty and it came out in 2002. This film is one that I believe was based on a real crime. Yeah, it's based on a true story. This one I thought was really interesting as well. It's about a family who one of their children is they wake up one morning to find one of their children deceased, and they believe that foul play obviously was involved, and the investigators turn their attention to the 14-year-old brother, and they do a lot of very unethical interrogating. Nothing graphic or anything like that, but very much points to the necessity of having psychologists and other mental health professionals in interrogating children, because none of that would be held up in court. None of those confessions would be held up in court these days because of how unethical their questioning was. The next film was Taming Andrew, directed by Artie Mandelberg, and it was a 2000 film. This one was very interesting because it was about a family whose child was abducted by the birth father, and when they get the child back, obviously he is traumatized from his time living with his deadbeat father. And again, another sort of look into sort of the process by which this child is trying to be reintegrated into his family, as well as dealing with trauma and being integrated into like regular childhood things like going to school and whatnot. And I just thought it was very interesting. I'm more interested in like the psychological, how they decide to deal with these issues and portray these issues. And I just thought it was very interesting and I think very realistic, especially of the time when people didn't realize so much that like, hey, this kid probably needs to go to therapy because he's probably dealing with a lot of trauma, so he's probably not going to talk to you. The next film was Dangerous Child. It was directed by, this was spelled the same way, but it's a different person, Graham or Grammy Campbell, and it's a 2000 film. I literally don't remember what this film was about. Oh, so this film immediately interested me because it has Delta Miss Burke. Okay. It also has Ryan Merriman. He's in a lot of, I believe, like Disney Channel original movies from when I was a kid. So I immediately recognized him and I thought this was very interesting. It is about when children do the abusing to their parents, which is very, it happens. And I thought it was really interesting, especially how they portrayed it. And the way that they portrayed the father's involvement in how this kid was being shaped into an abuser. The next one was Terror in the Family, directed by Gregory Goodall, and it's a 1996 film. It has Hilary Swank in it. Hilary Swank is a bad girl. She's a teenager who, again, this is another one where like the children are being very abusive towards the parents, like physically. Sort of the synopsis that is online for it is that these parents are too busy dealing with their difficult teen daughter to realize that their teen son is an alcoholic. And there's actually not a lot of focus on the teen son, but yeah, it's the next film was The Burning Bed by Robert Grenwald, and it's a 1984 film. Sorry, I'm trying to read my own handwriting. This film is about a battered housewife who decides to burn him up. I don't know how else to explain it, but it just sort of goes back and forth between her being caught for her crime and her telling her story of how the abuse led to her doing that. A lot of these could be triggering for people. I'm sorry. The next one is Violation of Trust. I'm telling you, I watched a lot of these movies, but Violation of Trust is directed by Charles Correll, and it's a 1991 film. It's about a mother who believes that her daughter was involved in taking the life of the daughter's friend at school. And we as the audience know that the daughter was involved with it, but it's a lot of like, do I turn my daughter in because she does need to face consequences, or do I believe her when she says she didn't have anything to do with it, even though I keep finding evidence that she did? The next one is a fun one. It's called Midwest Obsession. It's directed by William A. Graham, and it's a 1995 film. This one is actually just a fun one. It's about a woman who is jealous of another woman because she's with the man that she wants to be with. So she will do anything to get this man's. She crazy. The next film is Just Ask My Children. It was directed by Arvin Brown, and it's a 2000 film. I believe it's based on like stuff that was happening in the US at the time, where a lot of adults were being accused of abusing children, and this like these really large like satanic cults and stuff, people were really afraid of that. And so this is kind of like, I don't know if this is like a fictional retelling so much, but it's about that. It's about these parents being accused, and of course they're like, well, just ask my children, like I did not do this. And the children again are pressured in their interrogation to say things about their parents that they don't believe. And it's very clear that these parents did not do this. So yeah, I believe it's based on a true story, because I think in the afterword they talk about the results of what happened to people later on. It's a very frustrating story to watch, but it's very true of how the legal system can sort of corner people in a way that if you are innocent, you can still end up in prison for a very long time. The next one is Gone in the Night. It's directed by Bill L. Norton, and it's a 1996 film. This is another one where a little girl is taken, and they believe that the father or the parents were involved in the abduction, which it's normal for police to question the parents when a child goes missing, but in this case, of course, they had nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's just another one of those. And the last one of this nature I'm going to talk about is The Lies He Told. It's directed by Larry Elican, and it's a 1997 film. This film is about a man who he stages his death so that he can start a family with another woman in another state, and he uses the excuse of being like a CIA agent. And it's just kind of, this is a hinky one. This is just kind of funny because it's not based, I mean it is, but it's not. It's just funny because it's so ridiculous, yet at the time you could probably do that. So those were all of the films that were like related in the fact that they were like TV movies, mostly based on real life events about very serious topics, yet it's very strange how bad they are, but also they're very interesting. Like some of them were actually interesting, but some of them were also just very like, oh, this was just on TV, so I watched it. Needless to say, back to some of the like regular movies, regular just straight fiction movies. The next one is Chain Letter. It's a 2010 film directed by Dion Taylor. It's another one of those, if you get chain mail, you better send it to 10 friends or you die. And this is another one where like it should be a paranormal thing that's happening, but really there's like a real life person who comes after them and it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are those two things existing at the same time? Like, either make it paranormal or don't. The next one is Friend Request. It's a pretty well known horror film. It's directed by Simon Verhoeven, and it's a 2017 film. I remember when this film came out. It's about a girl who decides to accept the friend request of this kind of weird girl who's like different than her, kind of creepy too, like goth or something. And she decides to just befriend her anyway because this girl was looking for friends. But whenever she takes her own life, she kind of gets haunted by her over the internet, and her life starts to get ruined. It was so. The next film is Triangle. I talked about this film in the psychological horror Iceberg. Really good film. It's a time loop film about a woman who goes on a like sort of boat trip with her friends for the day, and they end up getting stranded on this sort of haunted ship where there's a time loop and she wants to get off. It's directed by Christopher Smith and it's a 2009 film. Really good. Chef's kiss. The next film is a found footage film called Amber Alert. It was directed by Carrie Bellessa, and it's a 2012 film. Slow. So slow. It's about these friends who were sort of filming something already. I forget the context of it, but they end up seeing an Amber Alert, and then they see the car, and then they follow the car, and yeah. Just really slow. That was the only thing I had for it. It was just slow. Another found footage film is The Mirror. It was directed by Edward Bose. It's a 2014 film. It's a British film, I believe. It's okay. They do some really interesting stuff. It's about these roommates who decide to set up a haunted mirror for a contest, and they're hoping that they see some paranormal activity, but like some other stuff starts happening. Again, this was another film that was just kind of slow, but they did have some good scares in it. I just realized that I think this next film was a TV movie, but it's not, I don't know, the film is called The Rendering. It was directed by Peter Svatek. It's a 2002 film. It's about a woman who is an artist, and she decides to help the police with like different renderings of suspects for things. And at one point, there's a rendering that looks like her fiance or her husband, and obviously that's concerning. And yeah, she has to investigate why that is. The twist is actually interesting, but yeah. Next, I finally watched VHS 2. I really liked the first one. The concepts in the second one, not as good. It's directed by Simon Barrett. It's a 2013 film. I know that there's a few other ones like VHS Viral. There's, I think, one newer one called like 1999 or something. Yeah, I just was kind of disappointed. It's a found footage anthology, and yeah, the concept didn't quite make sense for a lot of them. I did really like the like Asian cult one. I thought that one was a really interesting concept, but the other stories just didn't really make sense. and I didn't find to be as interesting or horrifying. Although I did find the GoPro zombie one kind of cool. That one was interesting because it was like a POV, but I think that the budget may have been at the fault of it, maybe. The next one is a classic, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Philip Kaufman, and it's a 1978 film. This film was an interesting and fun kind of watch. I was like, why would anyone immediately believe you that there were body snatchers? Because they was real eager to be like, oh my gosh, you right. Like, we gotta invest. I was like, what? I was so surprised by that. But the only thing for me is that the movie felt a little too long. Like, when it got to the ending, I was like, finally, I can clock out now. That's what I felt like, because I just felt like it dragged a little bit. So the next couple of films may disappoint some people, but I watched the Piranha 3D and 3DD movies. For one, I love me a good, like, something's in the water movie, because I think they're ridiculous, especially when it comes to sharks. There's only like a couple of breeds of sharks that actually are aggressive towards people for no reason, so. But piranhas? I don't know anything about piranhas. So the first one was directed by Alexandre Aja, and it's a 2010 film, and the second one was directed by John Gulager. So these are very clearly like the sexy girl slasher film sort of thing. I thought they were really funny in a way that, you know, like when you're a kid or when you're like a tween and someone makes a fart joke, it was funny in that kind of way. Like, not actually funny, but there were some elements that I was like, huh. The first one is about like spring break. It follows like some different storylines, but there's spring break, and then the second one is about a like a water park, a pool essentially, and yeah, they're just ridiculous in every way. The only thing that's great is that Christopher Lloyd is in both of them, and he's playing exactly who you think he's playing. And also there's Ving Rhames. So they're just side characters, so the main characters really aren't that interesting. But yeah, I mean, just like, it's one of those things where if it was made to be campy and it wasn't made by like in the gross, like disgusting, exploitative way, I think these would be really fun, you know, like in the way that women being naked could be like just a nice little element and like to be admired and not to be like, oh my gosh, oogly boogly, you know, like, I don't know. The next film was actually a really interesting film that I did not expect to kind of maybe enjoy. It is The Exorcism of God, directed by Alejandro Hidalgo, and it's a 2021 film. I was very surprised to like this film because I think possession and exorcism films are a little played out, you know, like we've just seen enough of them, but I thought this was really interesting in the way that they put it, because I have thought about this for a while in terms of a concept like this, and so I was really interested to see how they handled it. But a priest goes in for an exorcism that he is like really not fit to do, like he's not practiced enough to do by himself, and the demon lures him in with the sexuality of the woman that they are possessing, and obviously he commits a grave sin that a priest should never commit, and it comes back to him essentially. There's obviously the guilt that he feels, but also it literally like comes back to haunt him. So it's a very interesting film, and it has the butler from Fresh Prince in it, and he's playing a dope priest. Like, this would probably be, out of all of them, the one that I would recommend watch if you enjoy horror movies that are like actually kind of good. And I don't know about other people's opinions on this film. I'm sure some people really disliked it, but I just thought it was very interesting. And I love when, even if a film is like not very good, but it has a really good concept that feels original, it still kind of tracks for me. Oh my gosh, the next film is Creep, and not the Creep that I have been talking about that I love so much that has Mark Duplass, but Creep, directed by Christopher Smith, and it's a 2004 film. I've heard people talk about this film. I was very interested to see it, and I've never hated a main character more in my life. This film was really interesting to watch. I love just like a little guy in the train getting people. It's like I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of besides like Midnight Meat Train, but this film was also really good. Yeah, I've never screamed at the film so much. I feel yeah. It's pretty much a woman goes to catch the train, the subway, I guess you could call it. She goes to catch the train and she falls asleep and she wakes up and she's locked in the station for the evening, but something is out there to get her. And she has to like get the help of sort of the other people who end up being there, like some homeless people and things like that. And so it's very interesting, and sort of like the reveal at the end is like, whoa, okay. The next film I watched was Terrifier 2, directed by Damien Leone, and it's a 2022 film. I am not a fan of slasher films that much, and I watched the first Terrifier film, and I was like, okay, I've heard that other people really like the second one, that if the first one, because of the budget, didn't feel as good to you, maybe you'll like the second one. I actually like the first one more. I think there were more like psychological, scary elements to it, and this one just didn't track for me. Like, there were some interesting horror gore elements, but I feel like with a lot of slashers, there's not much about the story that's good. And I just feel like, I don't know, I just want more from films. And I know that the slasher genre tends to be more like you just want to see the gore, you just want to see people get stabby, you know? But I don't know. I want there to be more of like I want there to be make it more sense. I didn't even make sense. My syntax. But I just want it to make more sense, I guess. Uh, I I don't know. Again, there were some good practical effects, but at the same time, there was a lot of just unrealistic junk in it that I was like, I can't even get into the gore because this doesn't even make sense. Like, there's no way this person would still be alive. The next one I watched was Apollo 18. It's a found footage horror film directed by Gonzalo Lopez Gallego. It's a 2011 film. I'd heard some pretty good things about it, but honestly, I fell asleep. It's not that it's that boring, it's just that I don't know. It didn't hold my attention very well. Though I do think the concept is interesting, it just didn't hold my attention very well. And the last one for this list, I know it's been a long one. I wanted to make a longer episode so that, because I know personally when I listen to a podcast or really just any longer form video on YouTube, I like to listen to it in the background or as like sleep aid, so that's what I'm hoping for in that regard. But the last one I watched was The Love Witch. It was directed by Anna Biller, and it's a 2016 film. This film was interesting. I have seen so many screen caps of the film that I was like, I have to see this. Like, for one, stunning, okay? Those screen caps that I saw are pretty accurate of the vibe that it has. I honestly, when I saw the screen caps, I was like, I thought this was a 70s film. I thought this was a 70s film. It is not. It's a recent film that is made in sort of a 70s style. And the music, the sets, the costuming obviously is all supposed to look like this sort of luxurious, very idyllic 70s vibe, right? The only problem that I had, or actually the couple of problems I had with the film, was one, I really hate to be this person, but I did not like the voice of the main actress, and I felt like had they done some more sound editing to give it more of that 70s feel, like as if the sound was not directly correct connected to the image I was seeing, I think that would have like helped a little bit in sort of putting this sort of sound barrier between the dialogue and the actual room sound, right? I just felt like the sound editing could have been a little bit different. And I know obviously it's not supposed to be a 70s movie, but I felt like that was an addition that could have made it feel more authentic in a way, that made it feel nostalgic in a way that didn't feel like it was trying to be 70s, but that it kind of was. Like, I almost wanted to lean into it a little bit more. The other thing that I sort of had a weird feeling about was the elements of feminism that they were trying to bring into the film in a way that almost didn't make sense. Obviously, we're not supposed to love the main character by the end, but I don't know. Like, the story, I kind of wanted her to get away with everything in a way. Like, I kind of wanted it to be like, ooh, she going after them. And not this sort of like demented, deranged woman who's just like does it because she's so consumed by her own mental state, if that makes sense. Like, I almost just wanted this to be like, yeah, I'm just a serial killer. I kill beautiful men who think that I don't have a brain. I almost wanted it to be that instead of her being like, I'm trying to fall in love and I'm just so consumed with falling in love that I, you know, if I can't have them, no one can, sort of thing. Either way, those were all of the films that I've watched in the past couple of months. I didn't include films that I've talked about. But yeah, I thought that I would just do sort of a filler episode before I get into some other episodes that I have been planning, and hopefully I will have the mental capacity and energy to be able to actually complete them in the time that I want to, instead of having to do more filler episodes. So I apologize if filler episodes bother you, but I just need that sort of like mental space to be able to do the research and collection that I need to do of media, and also just to make sure that what I'm writing makes sense and is what I want to say. So, but that's all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed this sort of recap of what I've been watching. Yeah, a very strange past couple of months of just putting these TV movies on like autoplay, and also just how strange it is that all of these films sort of fall into that category. I do think it is strange that a lot of true crime ends up in the TV movie category instead of probably getting the attention that it deserves and the, I guess, respect that these people deserve to have for having a similar story be told. As a regular reminder that the Spotify episodes come out earlier than on YouTube, so if you are interested in hearing them earlier, I would highly suggest following on Spotify so that you can hear the episodes earlier. But if you are okay with waiting, then you can obviously subscribe to the YouTube channel, especially if you are invested in the psychological horror Iceberg. I'm looking for another larger project involving an iceberg or some sort of like longer topic that has more parts to it in the future. So definitely let me know down below if you are interested in more iceberg type of videos or videos where there's like more stuff like that. So yeah, just let me know what you guys think. But with that, keep watching movies and I'll see you in the next one.